I stared at the envelope like it had insulted me, not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. Mrs. Eliza Palmer was printed in elegant gold calligraphy on thick cream cardstock. No and guest, no Mr. and Mrs., nothing else. Just my wife. At first I laughed. I genuinely thought it was a mistake. Maybe it was some kind of old-school etiquette thing. Maybe the printer screwed up. Maybe his fiancée was one of those minimal guest list types. So I handed it to Eliza and waited for her to scoff and toss it in the trash. She didn't. She read it carefully, flipped it over, then said, "Oh, that's weird," in a way that didn't sound weirded out at all. "What do you mean weird?" I asked. She shrugged. "I mean, maybe he assumed you wouldn't want to come." "Why would he assume that?" Another shrug. That shrug was the start of everything. Let me back up a bit. I've known Will since high school. We were practically inseparable for most of our 20s. He was the best man at my wedding. When he got into a rough patch a few years ago, lost his job, got dumped, health issues, he crashed on our couch for 4 months. My wife made him lasagna once a week. That's the level of closeness we had. So imagine my surprise when we got engaged and I found out through Instagram, not a text, not a call, a post, ring on her finger captioned. She said yes, and just like that, he vanished. No check-ins, no drinks, no catch-ups. I figured he got busy. People drift, but it still stung. Fast forward to last week, Eliza gets the mail, and there it is. An invitation to Will's wedding, just for her. I thought maybe the envelope was missing my name, but the RSVP card inside, only one checkbox, one name printed on the line, Eliza. I said nothing at first. I wanted to see what she'd say, but she just smiled faintly and pinned it to the fridge. Like it wasn't the most insulting thing I'd ever seen. That night, over dinner, I asked, "So, are you going?" She sipped her wine. "Yeah, I think so. Alone." She didn't look at me, if that's what they wanted. That was when I started to feel something in my chest. Something cold. I didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't just the fact that my best friend didn't invite me to his wedding. It was the way Eliza acted like it was no big deal. When I asked her again the next day, she just said, "Will and I have stayed in touch. He probably thought you wouldn't be comfortable." I laughed. Uncomfortable with what? She hesitated. "He said you've changed, that you're kind of distant lately." That hit me in the gut. I've changed. I'm distant. The guy who disappeared off the face of the earth is calling me distant. Here's the thing. I could have let it go. Could have stayed home. Could have sulked and grumbled and felt sorry for myself. But instead, I did something else. I bought a suit, booked a haircut, rented the exact same luxury car Will used to drool over back in college, an Aston Martin DB11, sleek and midnight black, and I showed up. The wedding was at some vineyard 2 hours north, real posh place, rows of white chairs facing a sunset-lit gazebo, petals on the grass, soft piano music drifting in the air. I arrived 10 minutes before the ceremony. Parked right out front like I owned the place. Heads turned as I walked in. I caught more than a few sighs, whispers, but the real moment came when Eliza saw me. She was in a soft blue dress I hadn't seen before. Hair curled, lipstick perfect. She froze when she saw me walking down the side path between the rows. "W, what are you doing here?" She hissed under her breath when I got close. "Didn't want you to make the drive alone." I said with a smile. "That's not why I'm here now." I looked past her. "Where's the happy couple?" "Don't do this," she said. Her eyes flicked towards someone behind me. "Please don't make a scene." "I'm not here to make a scene," I said quietly. "I just want to say congrats." And before she could stop me, I walked straight toward the groom. Will's eyes widened the second he saw me. The bride was talking to the officiant, laughing. Guests were chatting and sipping champagne. But Will, he turned pale. "Hey, buddy," I said, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "Long time." He opened his mouth, closed it. How did?" "I heard about the wedding," I said. "Beautiful venue." He blinked. You weren't supposed to be invited." I smiled. "Yeah, I noticed." A pause. He cleared his throat. "I just thought. Eliza said." "Eliza said what?" He hesitated. "She said things were rough between you two, that maybe it'd be awkward." I stared at him. Then I said something I'd been holding in for months. "You ghosted me, Will. You dropped off the map, and then invited my wife to your wedding without me. What did you think was going to happen?" He looked away. It's not what you think. You sure about that? His fiancée turned around just then, saw me, her smile faded, Will quickly stepped forward. Listen, man, this isn't the time, relax, I said, raising my hands. No drama, just wanted to congratulate you, that's all. I leaned in a little, because after today, you won't see either of us again. That was part one. You want to know why he only invited my wife. Why, they've been staying in touch. Why my so-called best friend wanted me nowhere near his wedding. Yeah, it gets worse. Way worse. By the time the job postings went up for the promotion, I already knew Lucas would get it. He wasn't more qualified than me. In fact, he wasn't even supposed to be in the running. But he had something I didn't. He knew people. Schmoozed with the VP, laughed way too loud at bad jokes, brought in donuts on Fridays. I thought it was harmless office politics until I overheard him in the hallway. I'm not worried about Dan, he said, chuckling. He's a good worker bee, not management material. That stung more than I expected. Worker bee, like I was just a body filling a seat, making things run while he climbed the ladder on my back. I didn't confront him. I let it fester. The day the announcement came, I forced a smile through the congratulations. Lucas winked at me across the meeting room table like we were in on the same joke. Later, he slapped me on the back and said, "Next one's yours, buddy. Just hang tight." Buddy, I went home that night, shut the door behind me, and finally let myself admit it. He'd taken everything. My girlfriend, my social circle, now the promotion I'd earned, and somehow he'd managed to do it all while keeping that charming everyone, loves, Luca's image intact. That was the night something changed. It wasn't rage, it wasn't even sadness, it was resolve. I wasn't going to lash out. I wasn't going to get petty or make a scene. I was going to take my life back and make sure Lucas watched every second of it. The first step was simple, disappear. Socially, I mean, I stopped going to Friday night drinks, no more commenting on group texts. I kept things light in meetings, but otherwise detached. I wasn't bitter, I just stopped feeding the beast. And then I started building. A friend from college had launched a consulting startup and was looking for someone to lead a new tech team. I said I'd think about it. In reality, I'd already decided. By the time I resigned from my old job, Lucas threw me a goodbye party at the office bar. "Bigger things, huh?" he said with his signature grin. "Let me know if you need a recommendation. I think I'll manage," I said, raising my glass. I left that night without saying goodbye to most people. It felt clean. Fast forward 7 months, the startup, booming, fast, chaotic, alive, everything the old job wasn't. I was working 70-hour weeks, but it was mine, my team, my vision, my wins. I'd built something Lucas could never leech from. I even reconnected with old friends, real ones, people who remembered me before Lucas turned me into a supporting character in my own story. I'd heard through the grapevine that things weren't going so great for Lucas back at the firm. The account he inherited after my departure collapsed under his mismanagement. He'd been pulled from another project. Whispers of poor leadership started replacing the praise. Then came the icing. Jenna, my ex. She dumped him. No dramatic post, no cryptic quotes, just gone. One day her relationship status disappeared. The next, a photo of her alone at the beach with the caption, "Sunsets are better without shadows." I stared at that post longer than I should have. And not because I missed her. I didn't, but because I realized, for the first time, maybe she saw it too, that Lucas wasn't the prize, but here's the twist. I didn't feel satisfied. Not really. Lucas was slipping. His charm wearing thin, his reputation bruised, but none of it gave me the feeling I expected, because he still had something I didn't. He had no idea what it felt like to be used, to be cast aside like a stepping stone. He didn't know what it was like to stare at your life and realize someone else had been playing you like a puppet. He didn't feel that, but I knew how to make sure he would. It started with a phone call. "Lucas," I said, voice chipper, "I've got a proposition for you." He was surprised to hear from me, but not suspicious. "What's up, man? How's the startup life, actually?" I said, "That's why I'm calling. We're expanding. I need someone to run operations on a new vertical. We need someone with your skill set." He was silent for a second. Then, "You serious? Completely. Come in for a meeting. Let's talk numbers." He showed up the next day wearing the same smug confidence I remembered, even shook hands with people like he was already part of the team. By the end of the interview, I made the offer, a salary that beat his current one. Perks, a fancy title, he signed, and just like that, I hired the man who tried to take my life and wear it like a jacket. Only this time I was in control. For the first few weeks, Lucas was everything you'd expect. Flashy, loud, confident, he made sure people knew his title, dropped corporate buzzwords like breadcrumbs, and walked around like he owned the place. I let him. I wanted him to get comfortable. I didn't micromanage. I didn't criticize. I praised him in meetings. I even assigned him a few projects that looked impressive from the outside. Big titles, vague scopes. He thought he was building something, but I was just giving him rope. See, the vertical I put him in charge of, it wasn't real. It was a sandbox, completely insulated from the core business. The metrics didn't matter. The clients were unqualified leads we'd never intended to close. It was a simulated playground, dressed up like the real thing. He was building a kingdom on sand, and while he wasted hours crafting elaborate slide decks and holding strategy meetings with interns, the real work was happening elsewhere. Our engineering and product teams, my teams, were scaling the actual business, closing deals, securing investment. I was careful to keep Lucas in the loop, just not in the way. Sometimes I'd catch him trying to advise on projects he didn't understand. He'd throw in buzzwords or parrot old tactics that didn't work here. My staff would nod politely, then ignore him. He didn't notice because he was too busy thinking he was winning. The shift came slowly. A meeting he wasn't invited to, a project reassigned due to bandwidth, a junior hire being asked for input instead of him. He started coming into my office more often, asking questions like, "Hey, are we pivoting?" I wasn't looped in on the roadmap changes. I'd smile and say, "Oh, must have been a miscommunication. We'll make sure you're updated." We never updated him. He started staying later, coming in earlier, offering to take on extra work. The man who used to coast on charm was now trying. Really trying, but he didn't know what game he was playing, and more importantly, he didn't realize he wasn't holding any of the pieces. A month later, I scheduled a company-wide retreat, 3 days at a lakeside resort. Strategy sessions, team building, drinks. Lucas showed up with that same suit. Jacket over jeans look he thought made him approachable. He clinked glasses, gave toasts, told stories that sounded impressive if you didn't know better. But people knew better now. He was still speaking in polished cliches while others were sharing real wins, real data, real impact. On the second night, after a few too many whiskeys, he pulled me aside. "You remember that job you left?" he said, slurring slightly. "They crashed after you were gone. Like, total mess." I nodded. "Yeah, I heard." He smirked. "Guess you were more than just a worker bee, huh?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Yeah, turns out I was the hive." He laughed, not realizing what I meant. That was the moment I knew I had it, what he could never get back. Lucas had stolen my job, my friends, and my confidence once. But now I had something deeper, identity. He didn't even realize how hollow he'd become. He didn't know people were humoring him, that behind every nod was an eye roll, that he'd become the guy people avoided assigning critical work to. And here's the thing, he didn't even hate it. He needed the illusion, the title, the perception of relevance. I gave him all of that, just none of the substance. That was what I took from him, his sense of self. Not through revenge, not through sabotage, but by showing him exactly who he was when no one propped him up. A ghost in a glass office. One night, a few weeks later, he resigned. No warning. Just a quiet email thanking everyone for the opportunity and saying he wanted to explore new ventures. He left behind his keycard, his branded hoodie, and a copy of Good to Great still sitting unread on his desk. I didn't respond, didn't need to, because the truth was he hadn't taken my life all those years ago. He'd just distracted me long enough for me to forget I had one of my own, but now I owned his. I held it in my hand, studied it, and then let it go. Lucas left quietly, but the echoes of his absence were deafening. For a while, people tiptoed around his name, unsure whether to bring him up or bury the memory entirely, but soon he became what most impostors become, a punchline. His name reduced to an inside joke for bad judgment, for PowerPoints with no action, for empty suits that somehow got invited to the table. But me, I moved forward. The company grew. We closed a major Series B round 6 months later. Hired real talent, built systems that scaled, the kind of infrastructure Lucas would never have understood, even if he'd stayed. I spoke on a few panels, started mentoring founders, reconnected with some of the old crew, those who hadn't sold out, hadn't lost their fire. And I stopped needing to win, not because I didn't care anymore, but because I'd already won. Then one day I saw him again, at a small industry mixer, months after he left. I didn't know he'd be there. No one did. He wasn't on the list. He was standing near the back of the room, drink in hand, posture tight, like someone trying to seem like they belonged. He saw me. I nodded. He hesitated, then walked over. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He looked thinner, or maybe just smaller, like the air had gone out of him. The glow he used to wear so confidently was gone, replaced by something more brittle. He smiled, but his eyes didn't follow. "How's it going?" he asked. "Busy?" I said. "Good." He nodded. "Yeah, I've been consulting." I didn't ask with who. He didn't offer. A beat passed, then another. The weight of everything unsaid settled between us. "You were right," he finally said. I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" He looked away for a second, then back at me. I wasn't ready for that job, for the team, for any of it. I said nothing. I thought I could just slide in, do what I always did, talk my way through it, but you built something real, and I didn't even know what I was standing on. Still, I said nothing, because this wasn't for me. This was his reckoning. I thought taking your place meant I won. He said, but all I did was expose how much I didn't deserve it. I looked at him for a long moment, and I didn't feel anger or pity or pride, just a kind of quiet clarity. "You didn't take my place," I said. "You just borrowed the seat." He blinked, then nodded slowly. "Fair." He offered a hand, not like a challenge, not like a competitor. Just a man who had finally seen himself without the armor. I shook it, not because I forgave him, but because I no longer needed to. Later that night, someone asked me what it was like to see him again. I said it was like seeing a mirror I no longer needed to look into. Because here's the thing most people never understand about revenge. It's never about the other person. It's about reclaiming your reflection. And once you do, you don't need to break their mirror anymore. You just walk past it, without flinching. You'd think that would be the end, that he'd fade into the background like so many forgotten names in Slack channels and email threads. But life's more persistent than that. It has a way of tying knots you thought you'd already cut. 6 months after that mixer, I got a call, not from Lucas, from a founder I knew, a sharp guy, ex-engineer from MIT, building something in the AI ops space. We'd talked a few times, swapped notes, shared war stories. He said, "Hey, quick question. Do you know a guy named Lucas M?" I paused. "Why?" "He's interviewing for our COO role. Says he ran operations at your old company." "Of course he did." I didn't respond right away. The founder noticed. That bad. I exhaled. "Let me ask you something first. Do you want a COO who knows how to run a business, or someone who knows how to look like he does?" Silence on the other end. Then noted. He hung up. A week later, I got another text. "Lucas, thanks." That's all it said. No punctuation, no explanation, just that. I didn't respond, because I knew what it meant. It meant he knew I could have buried him. That I could have handed over every mistake, every betrayal, every dollar he wasted, and every bridge he burned, laid it all out in a tidy little PDF and salted the earth behind him, but I didn't, and that confused him. Because men like Lucas expect revenge to be loud, petty, destructive. What they don't expect is silence. Silence means they're not relevant anymore. Silence means they can't take anything else from you, because you've stopped playing the same game. He got the job. I heard through back channels, but it didn't last. 9 months later, he was out. Another quiet exit. Another round of confused investors and exhausted engineers wondering what went wrong. I didn't need to ask. I already knew the pattern. Empty men always build fragile empires. That's the thing about people like him. They think the world runs on talent, on charisma, on performance. They don't understand the quiet currency of trust. Of integrity, of showing up every damn day and doing the hard, invisible work no one applauds. They want the podium, not the process, and eventually the weight of that catches up. Every time, as for me, I kept going. Bigger projects, a few angel investments, spoke at Stanford, started writing, not about Lucas, not directly, but about what it means to lose everything and come back sharper, quieter, stronger. People started reaching out. Young founders, operators, even some ex-execs who'd seen their own Lucas. They all said the same thing. I thought I was crazy. I thought it was just me. And I'd tell them it's not just you, but it is your responsibility to come out the other side better, not bitter, because that's the real theft. He didn't just take my job, he tried to take who I was becoming, and that's what I took back, piece by piece, silently, relentlessly, until I stood taller than I ever had before. No thanks to him, but in full awareness of what he tried to destroy. That's the part he can never get back. Not the title, not the friends, not the connections, but the right to say, I built this. Because he didn't, I did, and I still am. Years passed, not in a blur, not like in the movies. Real time, long days, short nights. Progress measured in inches, not milestones. I rebuilt everything, my network, my confidence, my reputation, but most importantly, my peace. One morning, I was at a private roundtable in Soma. Just 12 of us founders, VCs, and a few operators who'd been through the fire and still had skin left in the game. The room was full of stories. Everyone had scars, and no one pretended otherwise. That's what made it feel real. During a break, a young guy, maybe late 20s, hoodie, caffeine hands, pulled me aside. Hey, he said, can I ask you something? Sure. You ever work with Lucas M? The name landed soft but heavy. I didn't flinch. Yeah, what was he like? I looked at the kid, saw myself 10 years ago, hungry, naive, eager to believe that talent and good intentions would always win. I took a sip of my coffee. Thought about how to answer. Then I said, here's the thing. There are people who build and people who borrow. He nodded, unsure. Lucas is the kind who borrows. Charisma, vision, your effort, your goodwill. He'll wear it like it's his own, but you'll wake up one day wondering why you feel empty. Like your ideas don't belong to you anymore. That's how he works. The kid went quiet. You're working with him, thinking about it. He said, he wants to advise our seed round. He's persuasive. I smiled, yeah. I said, he is. The kid ended up passing on Lucas. Didn't need to torch him. Didn't need to smear him. Just planted enough truth in the ground and let the roots do the work. Because that's how the long game wins. You don't always see it happening, but trust, integrity, and quiet strength. Those compound. Even when no one's watching, especially then, a few months later, I got a message, a LinkedIn DM from a name I hadn't heard in years. Lucas, it read, would be good to talk. Lots I want to clear up. Maybe we got off track. Hope you're well. I stared at the message for a minute. Then closed it. No anger, no grin, just clarity. Because by then, I understood something he never did. Closure isn't something you get from someone else. It's something you choose. He wanted to rewrite history. I had already written a better one without him. Now when people ask how I bounced back, I don't give them tactics. I don't give them a checklist. I just say, he took what he could, and I let him for a while, but then I took it all back. Not by chasing him, not by proving him wrong, but by becoming someone he couldn't touch anymore. That's the final revenge. Not beating your enemy, but outgrowing them completely. It was a Tuesday, nothing special about it. No product launch, no IPO, no camera cruise. Just an ordinary day, which is exactly how the best things happen. Quietly, without applause, I was walking through downtown, late afternoon sun painting the buildings gold when I saw him. Lucas, he was sitting outside a cafe, alone, hair thinner, eyes tired in a way ambition can't hide. He was hunched over a laptop, typing like he was still trying to catch up to something. He didn't see me, and I didn't stop, not out of fear, but because I didn't need anything from him anymore, not validation, not apology, not revenge. There's a power in that, a final kind of freedom. People always talk about karma like it's some cosmic punishment, but they miss the real point. Karma isn't about bad things happening to bad people. It's about them never escaping who they are. Meanwhile, I kept walking. lighter, quieter, untethered, because in the end he didn't take anything I didn't give, and I took back something he never had to begin with, myself. That's the part he can never touch. That's the part I never lost. That's the end of the story.